Eric, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having me on, Jack.
Yeah, no problems. Thanks for joining me. Eric,
Yeah,
for people who don't know who you are, could you give us a bit of an introduction, please?
sure. My name's Eric, and I'm a co-founder of Zulu Network. I've had an interesting journey through this whole blockchain kind of thing. I started originally from Canada, and I used to work at the largest independent marketing consulting firm in Canada. And I started in, more traditional, marketing, so and strategy. And I started in, I helped launch McCafe for across Canada. I worked on a lot of things for McDonald's. I worked on a lot of things for P&G, General Mills, and many other things over about 7 or 8 years. Then I decided to do my MBA, and I did my MBA, and as part of that, I had the incredible pleasure of doing an exchange program in Shanghai, and being a relatively simple Canadian and things like that, and then experiencing the shock of coming to Asia for a period of time and really really broadening my horizons and things like that. And then I went back to Canada, started a technology company, and and then got into the crypto space. One of the things about me that some people say is like I'm kind of the CSO, the Chief Simplicity Officer. I'm able to take very, very complicated things, and help make them more digestible and easy to understand. um, I pride myself, believe it or not, and this is it's like, I don't want to say controversial, but I pride myself in actually not being very technical, um, in a very technical space. We have very strong tech team. We have all these kind of things, but my core, you know, my core my core essence is that I actually think one of the areas that crypto and blockchain itself needs to improve on is sometimes it's tech for the sake of tech.
Mm.
And I think that one of the areas that it really needs, is we need to foster this idea of letting people in and embracing it and having real adoption. And so, um, you know, you need people like me. I'm not on the cutting edge, ready to go, the first person to download things. That's not who I am. I'm not too late either, but I'm on the, middle or early in the curve. But so the core thing is like, it's about how do you bring people in, how do you make it easy, how do you make it accessible, how do you make it fun, and that's when it becomes interesting and it can truly change the world. So that's a bit about me.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I think the space does overcomplicate a lot of their marketing and a lot of their language, right? It's very difficult if you're not techie, if you don't really understand the industry. It's quite difficult to pick up on what's going on, really, what you should be
Totally.
using, how you use stuff, how everything links together, how you can bridge one asset from one chain to another. Yeah, it's difficult, it's complicated.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so obviously you, as you mentioned, you're a co-founder at Zulu. Could you give us a bit of a look into Zulu, what you guys do, the challenges you're solving?
Yeah, that's yeah, definitely. So I think fundamentally one of the biggest narratives around Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is a completely like generational, like technological advancement, that's really literally as we speak reshaping the entire financial landscape, right? But one of the misconceptions that we believe is that, you know the the idea of, okay, Bitcoin is this pure store of value, and it's kind of something you just, need to hold on for and, hope for the best, is we think going to become an outdated premise. And I'm here to say something very shocking to you. Although he's a complete genius, Warren Buffett is wrong. Okay. He's one
Yep.
of the best investors of all time, but it's possible for really smart people to say things that are incorrect. And going back to 2018, Warren Buffett said, if you buy Bitcoin, you don't really have any interest in producing anything. You're just hoping the next guy pays more. He even used the endearing term rat poison or something like that. So so there's that. I mean, a bunch of his companies now are buying Bitcoin, so that's another discussion. But while he's a genius, one of the best investors of all time, for Bitcoin, he's wrong. And fundamentally, Bitcoin is not just a passive asset. Bitcoin is not just gold, right? You can take a brick of gold, maybe you can do some jewelry with it or whatever, but this idea of taking a brick of gold and just leave it there and hope for the best. It's secure, it's decentralized, and it's programmable value. That's what Bitcoin is. And we fundamentally, our mission, our vision is to believe that Bitcoin can be so much more than a store of value. It can shift from this idea of pure store of value, something you keep in a shoebox or keep, under your bed kind of thing and hope for the best, like a trading card or something. No, this is something that can actually do things and it work for you. It's not just pure passive. And it's going to become a new value paradigm. Okay. So it's really about powering the next uh, you know, instances of let's say commerce or things like that, um, you know, with the power of this incredible network and asset. And we believe it's about powering AI and DEPIN with Bitcoin. And so the idea is that you can earn using your Bitcoin and other assets in an open, fun, and powerful way. And we see, building this new economy with Bitcoin finality. We already have our mainnet up, and this idea of having this AI and DEPIN layer that's using the power of EVM, so anybody can play, right? Bitcoin is great, but to do a transaction can cost a lot of money, like up to $100, and it can take like 10 minutes or something like that. Like nobody has that kind of time. It's not really commercially viable. Yes, it's okay if you wait ten minutes for one transaction, but you can't do anything on it. So for us, it's all about how do we actually do things on this chain while leveraging this, I don't know, 1.5 or whatever, $1.3 trillion asset today. And that's where all of the value is right now. So some people say, well, Ethereum is the test net of crypto and the real thing is still just Bitcoin. And so what we've done is we're making it so that it's programmable, so you can do things with this Bitcoin. And power AI, power DEPIN, stake your assets and earn on Bitcoin. And so with making it so simple, like just connect your wallet, secure, stake to secure, and for Bitcoin. And so, we think there's going to be so many amazing things that come with AI and Bitcoin, right? You think, oh, they're two completely different things. No, they're not. Because we see, for example, the future like AI agents, models, DApps, assets, things like this. And how are all of these agents and all these things going to connect? How are they going to pay for things? Well, crypto is instantaneous. It's easily fractionable. It's fractionalized. Like it makes it just works, right? So doing that while leveraging the network effects and value of Bitcoin itself is just a no-brainer for us. And so, that's kind of a bit of background on Zulu. And we think that by leveraging the power of AI, and other things on top of Bitcoin and making it usable and friendly and fun, we think that this is going to be a huge, huge area for excitement. And that's about Zulu.
Nice one. Sounds cool. So you guys have been around for a good few years now, right? Two, three.
1 and a bit years, maybe
Okay,
1.5 years. Yeah, something like that.
nice.
Um, yeah, and been growing pretty fast. I mean, we had like 700,000 people on our test net. It was quite strong. Um, market is a bit shifty here and there.
Yeah, it's a bit funny at the
So,
moment.
keeping everyone's attention is, for long periods of times is up and down. But I mean, hey, it's great.
Yeah, for sure. What you said there about obviously blockchain and crypto like underpinning AI, you can see the merge is becoming more and more and more apparent. Like just today, I was signing up for all of the side events for Token in Dubai. Every
Mhm.
other event is a AI times blockchain or AI and Web3 event.
Mhm.
Um, you can just see that merge like happening more and more and more and more as time goes on. It's quite interesting to
Definitely. I
see.
mean,
It'd be
it's
interesting to see what
it's
comes
it's
out of
only
that.
natural.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally. There's going to be a lot of like garbage that comes out of it, to be honest,
yeah,
but there's going to be a lot of amazing stuff that comes out of it too. And I think that, it's a really amazing time, and it's pretty exciting, to
yeah,
be
for
honest.
sure. Well, you need the good stuff and the bad stuff, really. Like that's where you need people to try and build everything they possibly can because that's how the innovation happens, right? Like there are going to be bad things in there and they're going to be rubbish stuff, but there's also going to be some amazing things that come out of it. You need both.
Absolutely.
Um, so over taking it back to your career, you explained your journey. You've worked with some huge brands before getting into Web3, and obviously you've been here for a while now. You said like 7 8 years, and obviously with co-launching Zulu over the last year and a bit. You must have seen and come up against quite a lot of challenges during that time. Are there any that really stand out to you that were like your biggest learns, like things that you really maybe that surprised you or that you really learned from like throughout that journey? I know there's probably tons, but like, are there
Yeah,
any like key ones that stand out?
absolutely. Absolutely. So I'll say a general point, and then I'll talk about specific examples from my previous work and from Zulu.
Okay.
And it comes down to one key thing. If I can give advice on anything, if anybody is listening to this and listening for advice on what to do with your career, what to do if you're having a startup, what to do, whatever, and it is about listening to true insights. Okay. What do I mean by this? Now, that sounds like, okay, sure, whatever, I get it. But this is so much bigger than that. All right. Let me tell you something. Most people lie. Okay. And I don't mean in a way that's malicious. I don't mean it in a way that's, oh, like they're purposely lying. No. The people lie every day to themselves. They lie about a lot of things. And, you know, you know, if you want to do something great, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in, you're building a company, whether you're doing whatever, we have to peel away the layers, and we have to truly get to the deep human insights. And what one of the biggest learnings that I've had is that when you when you I call this kind of ivory tower thinking. I don't know if you've ever heard of that term. Have you heard that term
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
Well, when you're in your ivory tower, it's like you think you know everything, and you're like up on high, and you look down at the people and you say, oh, I think it's this. So when you're thinking about an idea, you're thinking about a business, you're thinking about a marketing strategy of how to tell people about what you're doing, right? The worst thing you can do is ivory tower thinking. Okay. Means you're just assuming things. You're like, oh, I think they're gonna like this because that's it, right? No, that is the worst thing you can do. All right. In fact, it goes way beyond just, like, how do you market something? It's, should I even do this thing or not? Should I even do this project? Should I even do this company? Right? That is the most important thing you can learn. Now, let me give two specific examples so that you can get a good flavor or sense from this. The first I'm going to tell you is from my experience doing strategic planning for McDonald's. Okay. So I worked with McDonald's for about 7 years or 8 years, and I this was closer to the to earlier to, when they did like Super Size Me, and like there was, a lot of like, bad backlash about health concerns for McDonald's. Okay. And so I, one of the things that I was tasked with was understanding and gaining insights from about salads from McDonald's.
Okay.
So, so we were planning to do a big salad launch. All right. And, we went all around Canada. We met with a bunch of different people, specifically women in the target demographic, and we would go around and meet with them and talk with them and get their true insights on salads. Okay. um and people would say a lot of things, right? If you talked on a very surface level, they would say, oh, I want, very crunchy proteins in my salad, I want this, I want this. But they would lie, right? They would say things all the time that were just like very, surface level, and it wasn't believable even them to themselves. They're like, oh, I'm just going to get a salad. How many times do you say that? Even, everyone wants to stay fit, everyone wants to whatever. It's like, I'm just going to get a salad. But yes. So I remember one woman stood up in the middle of the thing, and she said, get a salad at McDonald's. She said, I'm not getting a salad at McDonald's. When I go to McDonald's, I want to get dirty. That was her words. I want a burger. I want greasy French fries. I want to dip it in ketchup. I want to eat it. You know what I
Mm.
mean? That's a real insight. That everyone was like so polite. Everyone was like, yes, I like, protein on my salad. I like this. You're at McDonald's, right? Why are you at McDonald's? Your kid wants a Happy Meal. You want this, like, you're not thinking like that, right? So she was very honest. That's a real insight.
Mm.
Okay. Now let me give you another example for Zulu. Okay. So uh one of the things that we assumed, remember, like kids will say this, like, if you assume, you make an ass of you and me.
Yeah.
So this is go back. We were guilty of having, you know, ivory tower thinking, right? So at the beginning, we're thinking, okay, maybe we want to have some kind of uh uh you know POW, like proof of work aspect, and really target a lot of miners for this, for like kind of Bitcoin layer two, right? Well, a lot of miners, like, they're going to support it, they're going to do a lot of things. Sure, that was our assumption. All right. We went to Nashville, like the big Nashville conference, okay? Last year, where President Trump spoke, and it was this whole thing, right? And on the side, I'll never forget this. Very similar to my "let's get dirty" comment. This is another one of those, like, deep, because once again, if you talk to a lot of people, they're going to give you this kind of, like, call it like mom's apple pie, right? What is mom's apple pie? It's basically something that's like sweet, it's yummy, but not there's no nutritional value. It's just like, you just get, you hear it, you want it, okay, great, right? You can have different cultural references to that, but it's just like something that just like you just want to hear it,
Yeah.
right? And and I think that, like, one of the so we had this conversation with one of the biggest mining companies in the world, okay? They're based in the US. We met with them, and I'll never forget this. We met with this lady. She was very, like, very prominent in the mining industry. Okay. And we sit down with her, we say, okay, so, what do we like, like, we're very, we're coming in like a little, not saying cocky, but a little bit like, hey, like, how do we get you into this thing? Like, what are we gonna do to, get you on board with the mining, get your mining stuff on board, and let's, like, Bitcoin layer two is gonna be huge, and like, let's do that. Okay. And she was like, we had actually hung out for like 1 or 2 days, like our team, her, like, things like that, and like we developed a rapport, so it wasn't just like some first meeting, whatever. So she was comfortable to be very honest
Mm.
with us, and what she said was, she said, I will never support you guys.
Brutal.
We're
Brutal.
like, whoa, why? Right. She says, how do I make money? How does a miner make money? A miner makes money from Bitcoin transactions,
Yeah.
right? I mean, very, very simple. A Bitcoin miner makes Bitcoin money from Bitcoin transactions. If you guys are trying to help scale or make it more cost efficient, how is that good for mining? She's like, I make millions and millions of dollars, or tens, or even maybe even billions of dollars from Bitcoin price going up. And if you saw, if you saw, ordinals, remember
Hmm.
ordinals? Like all these things like rune stones, like these things were driven, like actually drove up network, activity for Bitcoin, right? And that was actually one of the things that actually got us to start this thing. It was like, okay, we need to have more transactions and like scalability for Bitcoin. But that's an incorrect assumption
Yeah.
when it regards to miners, because as I said, they they're like you're it's like even if a layer two is super successful, right? It goes to Binance, let's say it goes to like a huge, get a ton of users, you're actually cannibalizing my core business, which is Bitcoin mining. So why would I support cannibalizing my business when my business is already very good and I'm just getting Bitcoin as a store of value?
Oh, you wouldn't. You wouldn't, would
So
you?
that's one of those, we wouldn't, right? So that's one of those moments where like, oh, okay. And we really appreciated her honesty, but it was like, you can't. So my biggest piece of advice for anybody, doesn't matter really what industry you're in, if you want to start a business, if you want to get into market, if you want to do whatever, I mean, marketing is a part of
Mm.
everything, right? You even if you're a doctor, you still need marketing. You need people to trust you, you need trust your advice, right? You still need to, I mean, in some way sell what
Yeah.
you're doing, right? So you need credibility. So fundamentally, right, the biggest piece of advice I can give is, do not assume things and do not just take things at face value from people. Okay? Because it's not malicious, right? Even for example, you can look at, we can take some piece of data, we can skim it over like five different ways and tell five different stories, right? But it's not going to give you real data. And that comes from actually talking to people. Get out of, most people today when they work, they just only work on their laptop, right? They just, it's like you have this firsthand information, right? Then you have secondhand information, which is like, some analysis of something, and third hand information, just like, you Google it, you just get some chart. But and it still can be useful, but it's still so far away from the real deep human understanding and insight that can spark an aha moment. If if you have that special moment, like when, for example, like you're probably you're talking to a lot of like entrepreneurs, right, or people who want to become entrepreneurs. If you don't have that magic moment, if you don't feel that spark, if you don't whatever, any business, any startup requires like 5+ years or whatever of work, right? If you don't have that magic spark and you don't have that aha moment, then keep looking it for it or
Mhm.
stop. That's my advice, right?
That's good advice.
Because because most people, as I said, give you mom's advice like, oh, just keep going, you can do it, it's all good. But that's actually not good advice.
Yeah. They say, I suppose people say that because it's not to be malicious. If anything, it's the opposite. They don't want to necessarily hurt
They're
your
just trying to be
feelings. Yeah, trying to
polite.
be polite and trying to give you the support that you
Hmm.
want. But that's quite difficult to get to the real truth of what people want, right? I guess you almost have to try and
Hmm.
you have to try and get that information anonymously, like maybe as part of a wider group, so that people are a little bit more comfortable to give it to you. Do you go to your peers and people
Actually,
you do trust to give you the advice? Do you think that? Yeah. What's your thoughts?
it's a good question. I think people in general are actually very, people are very nice in general, and like they're open to talking, but you need to do it in a way that they're comfortable really telling you the truth. If you're just asking them like just a one-off or whatever, like one of the things that's like really powerful is this idea, like, and I think we don't necessarily do it enough, is this idea of like ethnographies or like just like just like focus groups or even just one-on-one meetings, right? Like I think that there's a richness to that and it's time consuming, but if you really like most of the time actually what you do is not as important as who you are talking to. You know, when you say you need to really target your target, if you truly understand your target, you need to know what like makes them keeps them up at night. You need to know what's like what's truly motivating them. If you don't understand that, then don't do what you're doing. Like you're just gonna spin your wheels and just assume a lot of things. Maybe you might get lucky once in a while, but you really need to understand what they're looking for. And that's the lesson. That's the key thing.
That's a good,
Listening, but listening in a very like probing way.
yeah, that's a good skill to try and learn as a founder. Like one of the questions I was going to ask you is if you could give us a bit of a crash course on what makes a successful founder. As you've just talked through there, the ability to really understand your target audience, understand the problem that you're really trying to solve, make sure it is a problem, make sure it is something that people want it to be solved. I guess you kind of touched on it there, but um, I guess yeah, that's got to be a key skill, right? For any founder, any successful founder, you have to be able to get to the bottom of your target audience and really understand what they want.
Yeah, if you truly understand what they want, then the problem will be flashing as like bright as day, and and then you can truly test your solution. And you should also, as a founder, a lot of the times people overcomplicate things. You should come up with like quick ways to test it and and challenge your assumptions before you do a lot of work. Before you like, okay, I'm going to go do this PowerPoint. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do this. Actually, just go and talk to people. And you might be wrong on your target. You might be wrong on the offer. You might be whatever. But if you don't go out and actually talk to people, you'll never get the real scoop.
For sure. And just on that as well, I guess something else that might or is very useful if you do want to be a successful founder is then the flexibility to be able to not have your ego bruised in that situation. Because I can imagine it's you've come up with this amazing idea and you go out to the market as you spoke to your contact in the mining industry and you thought this project is going to be amazing. You go, right, we've got it. We go pitch them and they go, nah, we don't want it. It's not interesting. It's not for us. I guess the ability to be flexible and think, well, okay, so who is our target audience? Like, who are we going to go after? Like, how are we going to change up the project? Having that flexibility, I think, is another key skill, right? And if you don't have that, I think that's quite difficult. It's difficult to be a founder if you don't have that level of flexibility, really.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm going to say something and I'm also going to contradict
Okay,
myself. So, number one is you need to have grit and resolve. Okay, you need to be comfortable having doors shut in your face. However, also going back to what I said, you need to also challenge your assumptions before giving that resolve. Because if you're just having resolve, if don't, I'm going to do this no matter what, you will be myopic. You will have your blinders on, and you will not truly be able to get the real insights. But if you feel okay, I have really uncovered this aha moment, then go for it. And also drown out the noise. This is another big piece of advice. There's so much noise from people. The number one question you should ask yourself when somebody is giving you advice, have they done what I want to do? Okay, have they actually have they actually accomplished what I want to accomplish? For example, most people okay, when they do a startup, say, oh, I want to make the startup worth $100 million or whatever it is. Okay, if someone is giving you advice, listen to them, sure, but take it with a grain of salt. Like, did they reach this goal already? Did they reach something similar to what you're trying to do? And if the answer is no, oh, they're a teacher, or oh, they're this, like, then don't listen to them. Like their opinion is literally irrelevant. Um, you know, or do exactly the opposite of what they're telling you to do. Because it's just like, you know, it's like empty. What is that? So listen to them, filter it out. Sometimes there might be something interesting or a thread or something like that. Don't be arrogant, but if they're like have nothing to do with what you're doing or what you want to do, then don't listen to them. It's just noise.
Yeah, right.
And so there's so many inputs and noise and things like this. Oh, this other project just did that thing or whatever, and people will say, oh, we need to change our strategy, we need to do this. No, like, just drown out the noise, focus on what you want to do. And if you have that aha moment and you see, okay, there's a clear market for this, there's a clear this, there's a clear this, and we have, great potential distribution or whatever it is, then go for it.
Yeah, you're right. It's, it reminds me a bit of when I launched Unveil actually, because I only recruit into the Web3 space, and I was seeing that there's a real talent shortage in Web3, and a lot of projects do find it. Some don't, but some majority of projects find it pretty difficult to find the right type of people. And when I was launching the
Mm.
agency, and I was saying to friends and family and stuff, I just want to focus purely on Web3 blockchain recruitment. Everyone's going, "Oh, I don't know if you should do that. Is that somewhere you should really look at?
Is
Is it
Web3
a
a
fad? Yeah, is
fad?
it
Is this
scam? All this
nothing? Is
kind
it
of stuff."
like, yeah, like this kind of
Um,
stuff. Yeah. But you knew better than, because you were the one in the
yeah,
industry. You were talking to people, you had the insight, you had this whatever, and you saw the opportunity before other people saw it.
yeah,
That's what I'm talking about. You you, if you talk to like 10 different companies, you're like, oh, I can't find anybody to for this XYZ role. It's like, well, I know people, I can help you find that. They're like, okay, well, let's
yeah,
go. Like, if you have that, then you have the insight, you have
mm,
it, right?
yeah, for
That's what I'm
sure.
talking about.
And as yeah, as you mentioned there, like if I'd have taken the advice from people who haven't launched recruitment businesses or who don't work in the industry, don't really understand the problem that you're trying to solve, I'd have never started it. And this is like 3 years later,
Yeah.
um, going well. And you just think, well, if I'd have actually listened to those people, who knows? I might still be, don't know, might still be employed working in a recruitment business in Web2 recruitment for, don't know, insurance businesses or something. Who knows? You don't know where you'd be, right?
Mhm.
But you're completely right. You're
Exactly.
completely right
Yeah.
on that. Um, Talking of kind of joining the industry and working in the industry, I speak to a lot of people who want to break into the space. Is there anything that you really want people to be aware of, or anything you think people should be aware of before joining the industry?
Yeah, I would just say, and it's very simple, but make sure so two things. Number one, once again, I'm going to repeat what I already said, which is make sure that there is a clear need for something. And I don't just mean like, oh, you read like a blog or you read like, actually talk to people that clearly need something. Do not create a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. It's not good. Okay. This is what I'm talking about with, from the beginning, in terms of like, you know, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of things like that. It's just like, oh, we need to like, we have better TPS, which is like transaction per second, or we're faster, we're better. Like, who cares? It really doesn't matter. Um, it's really about like, how do you bring users on? How do you actually grow, and how do you solve problems? And I would say 90 something percent, 90 something percent of any crypto project is actually useless. Um, it's a bit harsh, but they haven't I would say most crypto projects have not actually solved any problems. They've just created technology for other things. Um, except for this thing I call casino-fi, which is basically like just things you can gamble on. And I think that the market is starting to mature a bit. I think there was this whole wave of meme coins early in this cycle, and I think that people are kind of just getting tired of it,
Mm,
honestly. I think there's a fatigue going on. Um, and like I think that the idea is like, can you do something that people
yeah.
actually want? Okay. And I think if you ask that question and you can genuinely answer it, and you can add value in that capacity, then the answer is of course you can break into the industry. And remember, if you know, as someone who is not technical, I'm not a developer, right? My skill set of being able to talk and clearly convey, complicated things in a simple way
Mhm.
is valuable. Okay, it's valuable. Marketing is valuable. You need to be able to communicate with people, all right, and express your value. So, but fundamentally, that's all well and good. But if you can't actually solve a real problem, then all really is just like pump and dump
Yeah.
garbage. Really, I mean, how many pictures of dogs do we need? We
Yeah.
just don't need that many. And so I was something like, I don't know, there's millions and millions, maybe 10 million tokens now or something.
Wow.
Forget the exact number, but like it's astonishing. Like if you look at pump.fun, I mean, I have opinions on that, but if you look at pump.fun, like there's like 100,000 tokens coming a day or something. Like what's the value of these things? There's nothing.
That's
It's
just
just
gambling.
literally
That's
nothing.
just gambling, though, right? Like that's
So
uh, tapping into
you're
people's
gambling.
needs to gamble or want to gamble. That kind of
Yeah.
gaming side, right?
And I mean
Yeah.
that is a need. That is a need. That is a deep insight, right? And maybe that is what people want. But, you know, the question is, if you want to get into this industry, what problem are you solving? Whether it's for yourself, like, oh, I can solve this problem because I can add this value, or if you're a project or you're a founder, what value can you
Mm.
actually solve? And that's
Yeah,
a
it is.
really hard question, because unless you're like, unless you're, doing something like with, like, for example, like RWA tokenization or things like this, like most of the stuff is just like gambling. That's why, like, we're Zulu is building on Bitcoin itself and trying to actually, create native Bitcoin yield, which is a very crazy concept, because Bitcoin does not actually add new tokens. Like, it doesn't have inflation. So you need to really come up with, like, that's why we're working with like AI and Depin and things like this, where it's like you can actually do things on top of it beyond just like speculating on
Mm.
the next
Yeah,
meme
for
coin.
sure. And what if someone isn't coming in the space to launch a project or to found a project to solve a particular problem? What if they love blockchain, they love the look of the industry, they want to get their first job in Web3 blockchain? Is there anything that you'd want them to be aware of before joining the industry?
I think the core thing is you need to um you need to have the ability to play. Okay. I wouldn't hire anybody who is not actively trying to be in space. I'm not going to judge somebody that is new to the space. I'm not going to judge people if they don't have a lot of knowledge in the space. That's fine. We all start from somewhere. Okay. Where I'm not going where I'm not going to be lenient on is if people are just kind of only reading things, or just like, I want to get into blockchain. And yes, why do you want to get into blockchain? Oh, I want to get into crypto. Why do you want to get into crypto? I want to make money. Okay, sure. That's a byproduct. All right. Making money is a byproduct. The core thing is, how do you add value? And you this is still a very early stage industry. Okay, you have to change your expectations, you have to change your thinking. The core thing is that you need to, it's like a sandbox. So many, that's why people call these things projects. They're not companies, they're projects. They're literally experiments. I mean, that's that's what this thing is about. So you need to have that playful spirit. And the number one thing I would advise is you don't need to spend big money, right? But if somebody is coming to me and they want to like work on our team, or if they want to work in the industry, or they want to do their own project, the first thing I would ask them is like, have you actually played with anything? And you'd be surprised, right? Like you'd be surprised, like they say, oh, I want to get in blockchain, or they give a very academic answer. This is in some ways kind of like a kinetic industry, in that you need to like do things, you need to break things, you need to try different things. And going back, like for example, like in the DeFi era, right? Like y- y- if you didn't take like 10, okay, to take $10 and go play with these things. Like I'm not saying go take all your money and like gamble and go be wild, but go buy an NFT, go trade things, go
Yeah.
stake something, go do something. If you can't do that and you can't figure that out, then you should
Mhm.
not be in this industry. Fundamentally, like you should just literally not. Because you need to be like, there's like creative destruction. You need to be able to like try and play and break things and mess around. If you don't have that playful spirit, you can't
Mhm.
create this thing. Okay, then just wait 2 to 5 years when blockchain is something that's very mainstream. And it's not like, it's like when you use Facebook, right? Or you use like a big, like a an app like WhatsApp or whatever. You don't ask like, hold on a second, which protocol is this built on? Like, what's the DNS
Yeah.
server of this? Nobody talks like that. They're just like, hey, send me a file. Let me send you a message. Nobody, like, that's a real life person. Like that's how they talk, right? They don't talk in this technological jargon, right? So, um, but if you, in the meantime, while we're bridging that gap, okay, if you want to get into the blockchain space, you need to be able to play and mess around and break things. That's
Yeah,
my
you're
big
completely
advice.
right. The amount of people that I interview and speak to that say they want to get into the space, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, have you got a wallet? Like, what's your favorite ecosystem? And they're like, no, I don't want to put my own money here because it's too risky. I'm like, well, you probably shouldn't.
And then I would immediately
Yeah,
say you should not be in the industry. And like when we're saying like not put your money, like if you can't put like the price of like, I'm not talking, once again, I'm not talking like $1,000. I'm saying if you can't
yeah,
put like the price of a coffee into messing around and saying like, yeah, I played with Solana, I played with this, I tried this, I did, okay, I will talk to you, right? Like there's something there, like you put some effort, you tried things. If you can't do that, like what are we doing? You just want to make some
there's a
money?
lot of
Like
easier industries you can
why?
go into to just make some money, right?
Yeah,
Um, so what if someone
totally.
was trying to get their first job in the industry? Can you give someone some advice on that?
Yeah, I would give two pieces of advice. Number one, it's very hard. Okay. So, you know, how did I get my first job? Well, what I did, going back to my time like at the strategic planning firm for that worked with McDonald's, I literally, like it was like 2009. Nobody was like hiring anybody. And I'm like, okay, the biggest, client of this company is McDonald's. So I went around, um, you know, as I think I was like early 20s or something. And I went around and I said, I studied, and through my research, I said, okay, what's the biggest opportunity or focus for McDonald's from a business perspective? At that time, it was breakfast. Like breakfast was the hot thing at that time. Okay. And um, I think I even read in like an annual report or something like we're gonna focus on breakfast. So I wasn't, it's going back to that insight. Like I wasn't just like talking out of my ass. Okay. So then what I did was I actually went around and went to like 10 different restaurants and interviewed people and created a video of me interviewing people and getting insights around breakfast. So it's like, I want this, I want this, I want this. And this once again, I'm a kid, I whatever, but like I put this video together, I gave it to them, and it went like viral in the sense that like 30 people like were looking at it or whatever, and they're just like, get this kid in, let's go, right? you you have that's what I'm talking about by playing. You need to like, you can't just like sit on your computer and like, oh, I saw like crypto's good. Like, no, that's not good. You need to like get your hands dirty, go talk to people, go to events, meet with people, talk to them. And then ask yourself what's in it for them. Don't worry, don't if you can add value and you can help people and you can say, I can help you with this. uh, they might say, "Oh, we're not hiring right now." It's like, hey, that's okay. What if I spent 1 month? If you have the financial wherewithal, right? What if I spent 1 month and I can actually build this thing for you, or I can help you manage your social media, or I can help you whatever like figure out what's keeping them up at night. What's going to help? What are they looking for, right? Because if they for like at the beginning ask them, just directly ask them like what's important for you, what are some of your challenges, what do you think, and let them tell you their pain points. And then think about, how can I solve the pain points? At the end of the day, most people can only do the same, especially entry level. Most people have
Mm.
at the same level of skill. It's not about the skill, right? It's about, how do I feel around this person that I'm hiring, right? People, a lot of people like, the thing is like, when they vote for a president, it's like, you know, do I want to have a beer with this guy? Right? It's not about like the job that they're doing. It's about, do I like this person? Do I want to hang out with them? Right? And I think that that's, being likable and being able to solve problems is very, very valuable. So if you can say like, hey, hey, I looked at your website. I noticed, if you don't mind, I came up with, 5 or 10 ideas of how I think we can improve things for you guys. And he said, that's nice, like, but I don't know, whatever. He's like, and I'm gonna implement 2 or 3 of them for you. You don't do anything for me. You're like for example, we have this guy who's like a community member in Zulu. All right. He's from Nigeria. Okay. I've never met this guy, but he just loved our project so much that he literally just said like, I'm gonna become an evangelist for this project. Can I do meetups? I mean, we pay him like a pretty small amount of money, but like, to help, with some of these meetups and things like this. But I'm very impressed. Like, I think we did a couple of tweets about it. Like, he's got groups of people. He's even just going through the PowerPoint that I did. But like, he's just telling everybody about
Mm.
Zulu, and he's doing like, it's great. Like, that's value added. I never like was looking for someone to do that. He said, "Oh, I think I can add value. Here's how I can do it." And he
Yeah.
created his own job. And he's helping us. He's in the community. He's doing a lot of things. That's value,
There's very
right? That's
few
real.
industries where you can create your own jobs. And I think Web3 blockchain is definitely one of them. If you can show that you can add value,
Yeah, and
there's tons of ways you can do it. Like Web3 needs everyone. It needs marketing, it needs community, it needs HR, it needs recruitment, it needs engineers, it needs absolutely everything that you need in a traditional like Web2 company. You will at some point, depending on the size of the business, need it in Web3. So I think there's you can add value in any um, like any area really of a project. Um, I guess the tricky
definitely.
thing is getting in front of people
Yep.
to have those conversations, right? Depending on where you're based in the world, it's easier than in some places than in others. There's maybe a lot more meetups in other countries to be able to get into in front of founders, in front of people running projects and that kind of thing. Um, but I think it's about reaching out to people in the right kind of way. I get a lot of spammy DMs. I'm sure you do as well, man. Like tons of them.
Yeah.
Um, but the people who really take the time and make the effort to write something that is actually relevant to what you do. They may have like read something and they mention a particular tweet that you've done or a bit of content that you created or a particular bit of news about the project or whatever it might be. Like it's about creating that relevancy to then earn the right to like have that conversation, right? But yeah, it's
Totally.
difficult
You
if you're
got it,
reaching
man.
out for the first time and it's not something you've ever done before or anything like that. It's quite a daunting thing just to reach out to a bunch of founders on the internet.
Mhm. The best advice, the best advice I'd give for that is this idea of like an informational interview. I don't know if
No,
you're
go on.
familiar with that concept, but this idea of like, hey, can I, like, I know you're really busy, you're whatever, I definitely look up to you. I would love to like take you out for coffee and I want to pick your brain. And then as you're asking, like, ask them some questions about the industry and then kind of subtly pump yourself up a little bit and then show what value you can do by the end based on your research of what they're looking for. So you kind of quietly let them know about yourself, but also learn about what they're looking for in
Yeah, for sure.
in the
No,
interview.
I like that. That's good advice. And what about if someone is already in the industry? They're working here, they may be working in one of your teams or in another founder's team and stuff. How can someone try and build a successful career for themselves in Web3?
Yeah, the key thing is it's really about adding real value for projects. And, it comes down to, you know, anybody can just, if you're looking like 9 to 5 kind of job, like, oh, I'll do this function for you. Sure, that's fine. But if you actually want to succeed and do well in the space, you need to ask like, what can I contribute? What can I actually do that's going to genuinely help this project? Because projects are very hard. You need to like really, you really need to have the community itself, you know, genuinely contributing for the project, and people need to be incentivized. They need to be able to do things and build. And I think that like as long as you have a clear uh, value proposition for yourself as well, not just for the protocol,
Mhm.
like I'm gonna do this for you. I'm good at this thing. Then then it's great. Otherwise, like it's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and say if a founders have launched their project, they've raised some money, they're now looking to scale their team. Can you share some advice on how someone can hire the right talent for their project? How do you find
It's a,
people? What
it's
process
a
do you
good
go through?
question. It's a good question. I'm gonna say two things in terms of like the criteria. Number one is, um, frankly, if they're, unless it's for an entry, if it's for entry level, maybe it's okay. But in general, I would say actually one of the biggest mistakes you can do is hiring people that have no experience in Web3. Um, and that's challenging, right? Like that's probably why you have why you have a business, because if people are like, well, I can just learn and I'll figure it out. Like, no, you really can't just do that. It's not easy. You need to truly understand like if you're doing like a Web3 business in some ways, if especially if there's like a token, like your core business is not necessarily about building a product. There's the token component, there's the value, there's the community, there's all of these elements that are really important. And you can't just like say, oh, I'll just use my like web 2 skill set and do that. It goes back to what I said before. If they're not actively playing within the space, as I said, it doesn't have to be for big money, but if they don't have a wallet, if they don't play, if they don't say, oh, if they can't tell you new things that are happening in the industry before even you know it, then you don't want those kind of people on your team. That's number one. Number two, another big thing to consider is that this market is very cyclical. Okay. And we all see, the halving cycle and things like that. And having been in this industry for 7 or 8 years, I mean, this is my third third cycle already. And you know, it's feast or famine, right? So when you're scaling and building up a team, you need to make sure that your team is going to be like great in feast and in famine. And if there's tough times, like I mean, let's be honest, like when you look at scaling up and down teams, like crypto is not stable, right? Like
Not at all.
I like in my first project, we had 50 people on our team, right? Like we grew, you know, but it's too bloated. And then when the market's bad, you can't have that many people on your team. You need to be more nimble.
Mhm.
So, you know, I think you need to have like some really, really good people um on your team. Like quality over quantity. That's really, really important because 10 just okay people, especially if they don't have experience in web 3, are not even worth one good person. um you know a lot of the top protocols, a lot of the top people, they really only have like 5 key people.
Mm.
And it comes back to philosophy. Any really good high functioning team should only have enough people to basically like fit into a taxi, or a pizza, like to share a pizza. Like if you're having more than like 5 or 6 people and like in like active decision making roles, it's
Tough.
it's a challenge. Like it's hard to do anything.
Mm.
So yeah, that's my big advice. um and and in terms of sources and things like that, as to your question, like I care more about the philosophy and the thinking of people than where they come from. um I've hired people from recruiters, I've hired people from, people just come up to us in a booth, like when we're at a booth and they talk to us, but you can see they're passionate about it.
Yeah.
you know that's like, you know uh when yeah, like once I had like this kind of fan from Telegram, and he just introduced himself, and then we became friends, and like also like worked a lot together over a long period of time because he just was so passionate about it. And I think that's like that's something where it's like they can tell you something that you didn't know about the industry, and that's going to be very powerful.
Mhm. Yeah, that's cool. I think as well, like if you're a founder and you're trying to scale your teams, or even if hiring manager, you're not necessarily the founder, but just if you're growing and scaling teams, uh, I think it's super important to try and speak to other peers in the industry to keep growing your own network. Because the best hires you'll ever make will come through referrals, through your own network, hands down. Um,
Mhm.
yes, you might be able to find some. If you don't have a network, obviously that's why people like me exist, and you can reach out to recruiters, right? But I think um, if you're trying to find those best people, those 5 key hires, as you said, the people to share the pizza with, I think you've got to be hitting up your network, like who else you know in the industry, which founders you know, like who's the best engineer they've ever worked with that they'd recommend you have a chat with, who's the best
I mean,
head of
if
marketing, all that
I
kind of
would
stuff, right?
actually disagree with that. I would
Oh,
disagree
really?
with that. The
Okay.
reason is,
Why?
if they're so great, they're not going to let them go, right?
Okay.
um like if they're that great, they're gonna bring them to their next venture, and if it's a founder that you admire and you really want, that you're very close with, whatever, like why would they give them up? I would say like you really need to like this is still a pretty decentralized space. So just going to your network, unless you're like super deep and you've been for a long time. Like I've been in this space for a long time, and I don't think I could just like go ask people that I know, like, oh, who do you like, maybe once in a while, but like I just don't think like they would say like, oh, there's this or this specific person. I think it's in that moment, and then that's exactly why someone like you exists, right? Like
Yeah.
your agency, right? So yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think you would find. I think you'd be surprised
maybe.
if you asked friends, people you know in the industry that we're looking to scale the teams, we're looking for these types of roles. Like, who can you recommend? I reckon you get some pretty good recommendations. Um,
Maybe.
I always advise before even speaking to me or speaking to a recruiter to exhaust your own network first. Saves you cash for one.
Hmm.
You don't need to be paying agency fees if you can fill the roles yourself.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that makes sense. That makes sense.
but um, but then you get that, I guess, almost like a seal of approval, like people that you trust recommend these people and that kind of thing. Like, it's always an avenue to explore first. Whether or not you get anyone, I guess, is a different story, but it's definitely worth exploring first, I think.
Yeah. I think it's also important to know really what you want from the role.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, that's important for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Um, nice. So Eric, to finish up, there's one question that I like to ask everyone who comes on the show. Knowing what you know now about technology, about leadership, about Web3, blockchain, if you could go back, what advice would you have for your younger self at the start of your career?
I think the biggest advice I would have is um, be dynamic and stay learning. Because when I first started my career, the idea of Bitcoin or crypto or things like that was nothing. And I think that we're going to see a huge new quantum shift in technology over the next 5 or 10 or 20 years. Things that are just unimaginable at this point, right? If you talk to someone from university right now, it's like, "Hey, what should I study?" Right? Like, it's a hard question to answer. I mean, everyone's just talking AI, 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 but like, what specifically should they study? So my point is like probably the best jobs, the best product, the best things that are coming out there, in the next 5 or 10 years don't exist yet, right? Like like doing marketing or founding a blockchain project. Like what is that? Like 5 or 10 years ago, like 10 years ago specifically, like what is that? What does that even mean, right? And yet like there's this new thriving economy that's available. So the key thing is like as as long as you stay hungry, you stay motivated, and you keep going deep into the insights. Going back to what I said before, you must really, dig deep at those true raw human insights. And if you can do that, if you can get to that, everything will work itself out, right? And that goes for any industry. So if you have that skill set, then, and don't just like, okay, I just need to come up with a solution. I just need to throw some tech at this thing. No, it's not about that. What are we really doing here? What are we solving? What are we trying to understand? And if you can answer that question and you can say, what problem are we solving? If you can really genuinely answer that and not just like in your ivory tower say, oh, I think this is what they're thinking. No, you need to actually get validation from different people in your target audience. If you can get that, whatever you're going to do is going to work itself out.
I like it. Nice. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I've learned a lot. I think
Amazing.
we've covered quite a few topics there. I think it's some brilliant advice that you shared. Um, if
Amazing.
anyone listening wants to find out a little bit more about you, about Zulu, I'm guessing Twitter is probably the best place to find you guys.
Definitely. Check out Zulu underscore network
Okay,
on Twitter. It's a pretty vibrant community, and you know, check out for the latest news and stay up to date. And we got some pretty cool things coming. So yeah,
sounds good, man. Sounds good. Well, thank you again. Thanks very much for taking the time,
thank you so much, Jack. Really appreciate it.
and I'll catch you soon. Take care.
Perfect.